12. Men often come to me, not for answers, but for relief from a pain they cannot name. They sit with heavy hearts, asking the same question in 100 different ways. What do I do when she stops caring? When she pulls away like I was never there? And every time I tell them the same truth. You are not broken. You are not powerless. You are just asking the wrong question. You do not fix silence by chasing it. You do not fix distance by collapsing into it. You shift the frame. Because you are not a victim. You are not here to beg for validation. You are a man, or at least you are meant to be walking toward that. And here is where everything changes. You do not teach her what she lost by arguing. You teach her by becoming someone she cannot afford to overlook. A man who is grounded, purposeful, alive with quiet fire. That is not bitterness. That is evolution. That is evolution. In today's world, attention is more than curiosity. It is currency. And when someone withholds it without reason, when you have offered truth, presence, and effort, it is not your job to convince them. It is your job to recognize the signal and adjust your response. Not anger, not sarcasm, not silent punishment, but structure, realignment. You anchor yourself back to what matters, your goals, your body, your mission, your code. You do not spiral. You do not sulk. You upgrade. That is the lesson she will feel. Not from what you say, but from what she no longer has access to. If she cannot see the value in a man who is forging himself in the discipline of purpose, that is her blind spot to carry. Not your shame to fix. But she will never feel that loss if you keep chasing. This is not about power games. It is about self-respect. Real relationships are not built on control, but on mutual willingness. Two people choosing each other again and again. But when she pulls back without a word, when she slowly stops showing up, that choice becomes one-sided. And the silent withdrawal is not harmless. It is the breaking of an unspoken contract. If you chase her while she is withdrawing, you confirm the imbalance. You reinforce her silence with your pursuit. But when you pause, when you step back with clarity and calm, you either shift the dynamic or you rise above it entirely. One of the most heartbreaking mistakes a man can make is allowing himself to become a side note in a story where he used to be the center. You must never be an option. You are not an afterthought. You are not someone to be remembered only when she is bored or lonely. You must be chosen, and to be truly chosen, you must first choose yourself. A man who disrespects himself will always attract people who mirror that same disregard. Self-respect is not a statement, it is a posture. You live it long before anyone recognizes it. You walk it before anyone applauds it. Before you expect devotion or loyalty or consistency, ask yourself honestly, have I built a life that deserves it? You do not earn value by being constantly available. You earn value by being grounded in something greater than approval. When she ignores you, it is not a challenge to prove yourself. It is a reflection, a mirror showing you what part of your power you have given away. The moment her attention becomes your emotional oxygen, you have already left your throne. You have traded your authority for the illusion of closeness. But that throne, it was never hers to give back. It is yours to reclaim. Self-respect begins the instant you stop negotiating with people who do not value your presence. You do not teach her your worth by pleading for a reply. You teach her by becoming too aligned, too focused, too purposeful to need one. If your drive dies in her absence, you never had a drive powerful enough to begin with. You must become a man whose direction does not shift with the emotional weather of others. She is not your compass. She is not your source. Do not make her validation your belief system. You were not built to orbit someone's approval. Build a life so meaningful that even rejection becomes momentum. Let her absence echo in the silence. But do not let it rewrite your identity. You are not meant to be noticed by everyone. You are meant to be unforgettable to the right ones. Because a woman cannot admire the man who needs her to breathe. She is not drawn to the man who clings. She is drawn to the one who stands even when ignored, even when overlooked. He continues to rise. Because true self-respect is not loud. It is not about declaring your worth. It is about embodying it, silently, steadily. And here is the truth most men do not realize. A woman cannot feel safe with a man who needs her approval to breathe. If your identity collapses the moment she looks away, she will not admire you. Not because she is cruel, but because you have given her power over something that was never hers to hold. You teach her how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When she is not looking, your standards, your posture, your peace, they all speak louder than your words. If you crumble every time she pulls back, she will test you again. Not to hurt you, but to see what you are made of. It is instinct. And the masculine must remain grounded, especially when the emotional air gets stormy. What pulls her in is not desperation. It is discipline. Not control, but calm leadership. She does not crave a follower. She seeks a man who knows when to lead and when to leave. If your identity is tethered to her reaction, you disappear the moment her attention shifts. A man with no internal compass will always drift in someone else's tide. Respect cannot be earned by lowering yourself to keep her interest. Love rooted in need is not love. It is survival in disguise. You are not here to fill the empty spaces of her boredom. You are here to build something. Your time, your energy, your attention. These are not tools to win her back. They are sacred gifts and must be given with intention, not desperation. Stop trying to audition for a part in her story. Start writing your own. Every time you shrink to keep her close, you abandon the man you were becoming. Let her ignore the man who is evolving. Let her miss what she no longer understands. You are not less just because she cannot see your light. You are only invisible to those who lack vision. If you want loyalty, you must first show loyalty to yourself. In your habits, in your purpose, in the way you show up for yourself every day. The tragedy is not her walking away. It is that you forgot who you were when she did. You were not created to be her emotional safety net while she looks around for something shinier. She is not your enemy. She is just no longer aligned with your path, and you do not punish her. You refine yourself quietly, powerfully. Chasing her attention is not pursuit. It is the surrendering of your center. Strength is not in shouting your worth. It is in walking away without flinching when you are not being seen. The man who knows his value never has to convince anyone of it. He simply lives in such alignment that his absence becomes more noticeable than his presence ever was. Be the man whose absence lingers like a lesson, not the one who fades in the noise of need. Do not become forgettable in pursuit of being forgiven. Become undeniable through evolution. You do not gain power by demanding to be seen. You gain it when your presence becomes so purposeful, so rare, that your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. If she watches you bend your values just to keep her attention, she will never believe in your leadership because leadership requires boundaries. It requires conviction. And a man without conviction is not inspiring. He is replaceable. When you elevate in silence, she has two choices: grow to meet you or vanish in your rear view. Both are gifts. You do not chase attention. You command respect by no longer chasing what devalues you. The day you stop checking your phone, wondering if she noticed your absence, is the day you reclaim yourself. Self-respect is not noise. It is the quiet rhythm of a man who no longer needs to prove he is worthy. Let her ignore the man who is quietly building something greater. Let her wonder where the chaos went and why peace now feels like distance. You do not owe her a reaction. You owe yourself consistency. You are not a storm begging for notice. You are the sky after the fire, clear, calm, and untouchable. Let her feel the space you no longer fill. Not to hurt her, but to remind yourself that your presence was never meant to be used carelessly. Silence, when wielded with discipline, is more powerful than any speech. You do not teach her by trying to convince her. You teach her by becoming someone she no longer has access to. If your worth skyrockets the moment you leave, then it was never truly seen while you stayed. Distance is not rejection. It is refinement. The separation you choose is the mirror where your truest form appears. Do not fear solitude. It is the proving ground of real strength. The man who is whole alone cannot be manipulated by affection. Stop rehearsing lines for her approval. Start living by your own script. Stop chasing closure. Start creating clarity. You do not rise by replacing her. You rise by replacing the weaker version of you who needed her to feel valid. You are not an extra in her story. You are the author of your own. You are not an option. You are a standard. And if she cannot match it, you do not lower it, you enforce it. Women do not stay where there is no spine. They test you not out of cruelty, but to see if you still stand when the winds of emotion blow hard. A man who holds his ground without rage, without retreat, becomes unforgettable. Your calmness is power. Your restraint is power. Your absence is power, because it is in the moments when you say nothing that everything becomes clear. You do not become magnetic by being available. You become magnetic by being aligned. You do not attract loyalty by needing it. You attract it by living in truth, unbothered, unwavering. So let her feel what it is like to lose access to a man who built peace from pain, who chose depth over drama, who did not beg to be kept. Let your absence become your instruction. Let your silence become her reflection. Let your evolution do the talking. Boundaries are not walls to keep her out. They are the shape of your strength. They do not restrict intimacy. They define it. A woman cannot feel safe in your presence if you do not know where you end and where her emotions begin. Without clear edges, you invite confusion. You invite chaos. You see, women do not test boundaries to destroy them. They test them to feel them, to know where the frame is, to see if you will protect your core when she starts to spin. The feminine is not wicked, it is wild, and that wildness is not looking for a leash. It is looking for a center it can trust. When you lack boundaries, you become a mirror. You reflect her mood, not your mission, and in doing so, you lose her trust. She will not tell you directly, but she will begin to push harder to see if you will finally push back. Not with aggression, but with presence, with clarity, with conviction. If she disrespects you and you stay silent, you are not being patient. You are being permissive. She does not read silence as strength when it hides fear. She reads it as surrender. And now you have taught her something. Not with words, but with absence. You have taught her that your peace is negotiable, that your standards bend when she raises her voice. That is not strength. That is self-abandonment. You were not meant to be her cushion. You were meant to be her ground. And ground does not move just because the storm rages. You do not gain respect by being agreeable. You gain it by being unshakable, not rigid, rooted. The man she trusts is not the one who nods through discomfort. It is the one who calmly says, "That is not acceptable," and then holds that line. Boundaries are the edge between love and manipulation, between care and control, between surrender and loss. They tell her, "This is where I stand. And if you step past this, you will meet a version of me that is willing to walk away." Not because you do not care, but because you have cared too long to keep betraying yourself. You think she will leave if you draw the line. But the truth is, she is already drifting when you do not. Because no woman can respect a man who erases himself to keep her emotions in check. She does not want to feel like she is overpowering you. She wants to feel your strength in a way that does not need force. That means you must stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. She does not want the man who adjusts himself to avoid conflict. She wants the one who stays true even when challenged. She does not want constant agreement. She wants a boundary that does not tremble when tested. And here is the secret. She will test you. Not because she is cruel, but because she is instinctive. She needs to know if what you say is who you are. When her emotion rises, do you rise with it? Or do you become the anchor? If you collapse with her chaos, she learns she cannot trust your leadership, because true leadership does not match the storm. It steadies it. You do not need to control her. You need to control yourself. You do not need to explain your boundary. You need to enforce it with calm, with consistency, with quiet certainty. Because in a world where men yell or withdraw, a man who holds his ground without drama becomes magnetic. You are not here to fix her every mood. You are here to protect the structure that allows love to grow. Without structure, love suffocates. It spills everywhere, and she drowns in her own fire. You were never meant to be her therapist. You were meant to be her frame, and frames do not move when the painting shifts. So what is the truth? If you want her respect, stop fearing her reaction. Start respecting your limits. When she crosses the line, do not argue. Do not explain. Stand. When she yells, do not yell back. Do not run. Remain. Your stability is her sanctuary. And the more consistently you defend your peace, the more she will relax into it. Because deep down, she is not trying to find control. She is trying to find safety. And that only comes from a man who knows who he is and refuses to trade it for temporary approval. You do not lead by pleasing. You lead by defining. Boundaries are not rejection. They are respect. They do not push her away. They show her the doorway to something real. A man without boundaries does not offer love. He offers access. And access without standards leads to erosion. The more available you are without discernment, the more invisible you become. You see, she does not fall for the man who bends at every turn. She falls for the man who knows when to stand still. Because chaos does not seek softness, it seeks stability. When she is spinning emotionally, she is not testing your love. She is testing your structure not to break it, but to feel it. That is why she pushes. That is why she challenges to see what you will protect when things get heated. If you fold, she loses trust. Not because she wants dominance, but because she needs to feel held by something stronger than emotion. She does not need you to fix her feelings. She needs to feel that yours are not dictated by hers. This is where most men collapse, trying to solve every emotional wave instead of standing like the shoreline that meets it. You do not lead by absorbing chaos. You lead by containing it without losing your clarity. You are not her therapist. You are not her emotional sponge. You are the edge that defines the shape of the relationship. She wants to feel your gravity, not your neediness, because the more you chase peace through pleasing, the more she feels alone in her storm. But the moment you stop chasing and start anchoring, everything changes. Boundaries are not obstacles to connection. They are the framework where trust can grow. They show her what you protect and, by extension, how much you value yourself. Because if you let her cross every line, she learns your soul has no gate. And that kind of man cannot lead a life worth respecting. She needs to feel that even in her most chaotic moments, you will not abandon yourself. That you will not shrink your truth to soothe her pain. That you will not betray your values to keep temporary peace. That is what makes her feel safe. Not your compliance. Your conviction. And here is what happens when you hold the line. She stops testing. She starts trusting. She stops performing. She starts relaxing. Why? Because now she knows she is with a man who can weather her fire without flinching. She does not need a mirror. She needs a mountain. She does not need constant approval. She needs the comfort of your consistency. And consistency only comes from a man who has chosen order over comfort, direction over indulgence, truth over approval. The world is full of noise. She is looking for a signal. And your boundaries are that signal. They do not say stay away. They say respect lives here. They do not reject her. They reveal the version of you that cannot be manipulated by love. That is the man she follows. That is the man she admires. Not because he forces, but because he never folds. She will not tell you she respects your boundaries. She will just show you by how deeply she trusts you, by how safe she feels resting in your frame. Because when you stop trying to keep her and start keeping yourself, she finally feels she is with a man worth staying for. The price of having no boundaries is not just stress. It is the slow erosion of your peace, the distortion of your purpose, and eventually the loss of your place in her life. You were not born to absorb chaos. You were born to stand in it, unmoved, unbroken, unforgettable.